Hey everybody, it is Romania Black. Oh, so we are on episode 14 of Attack on Titan. We are halfway through season 1. I went back earlier this evening and I watched episode 13.5. There was a recap episode that Crunchyroll had. I don't think a lot of people were like, I didn't even know it existed. I was talking to people on Patreon about it, and they were like, I didn't even know that was a thing. But it was just a recap. There was literally no added footage or anything. It was just recapping the first 13 episodes. So I wondered if maybe they had a week in between when it originally aired, and they just used it as a recap before going into the second cour. But I'm glad I watched it, because it reminded me of a couple of things. First of all, the whole Colossal Titan. I'm still so curious about how the Colossal and Armored Titans work, and I know eventually we'll probably find out. But my thing is, the Colossal Titan, we've established in the last couple of episodes that Eren, when he turns into the Titan and he is either forcibly removed from the Titan or he ejects himself, the thing is, the Titan does take a little while to disintegrate. It does so very quickly, but it does still take a noticeable amount of time. With the Colossal Titan in episode 5, it was just, boom, it's gone. There's a bunch of steam, boom, it's gone. And I'm like, that's a giant body. Like, that's a huge body. It's way bigger than the nightmare fuel that we saw in episode 10 or episode 9. So I'm like, why does it instantly disappear? Like, it was never there to begin with. But yet, Eren's Titan takes a while to disintegrate. And so I'm wondering if perhaps the reason is that Eren isn't in control of his power yet. He's not doing like Dr. Yeager told him and mastered it yet. And so that's why maybe once you've mastered this Titan power, you can make yourself instantly appear and reappear as a Titan. I don't know if there's some kind of trick to that. And also, it would make sense because the Titan in episode 5 appeared right in front of Eren, like right behind Eren, like right at the gate. Like they knew exactly where to appear. So that's interesting too. So there's that. Something else, Nathaly, I put your name up here, pointed out back in episode 3, and it's blown my mind since finding this out. But back in episode 3, when Eren bumped his head on the ground in the training gear, he had it all bandaged up and everything, right? There's a moment where he's sitting at the table eating dinner with Mikasa and them, and there's steam coming out of his head. She pointed that out, and I went back and rewatched that scene, and my jaw just dropped. I was like, how? Because I remember at the time seeing that and being like, and I think I even commented in the reaction, I was like, oh, isn't that a funny little effect? No, it was foreshadowing. It was foreshadowing. So he's been able to be a Titan this whole time? Huh? I'm like, how does that work? So yeah, rewatching that, I was telling my brother, he asked where I was in this series, and I'm like, okay, I'm halfway through season 1. He was like, okay. So being very mysterious. My brother has promised not to spoil me about anything, and I've made him like take a blood oath that he won't spoil me. And I was really sad. I'll be honest, after episode 13, I was really sad for a couple days. Like, I was at work going, Marco died. Marco's dead. That death has been probably one of the most shocking deaths I've had in an anime series, and I knew it was coming because I commented saying, oh, well, Thomas and Marco are from Trost, so they're probably going to die because it's their hometown, and that's just like a trope thing with anime and storytelling in general. But yeah, and then we had Thomas die, but then Marco stuck around, and he was a crutch for Jean, and he like became like his friend and encouraged him, and I'm like, I'm shipping them, and suddenly you're going to tell me that he's dead? Part of me wants to think that it's not Marco, that it's just a guy that looks kind of like Marco, because he was starting to decay, and so at that point it's harder to identify. But he had the freckles, and Jean, because I'm like, and then so I told my brother, I'm like, I'm really sad Marco died. My brother was like, yeah. I was like, did he die? My brother was like, you don't want me to spoil you, so I'm not saying anything. And I was like, So I don't know. Annie was really upset about the person that died in front of her. I'm like, is that Connie? Did we lose both Connie and Marco? Because if we did, I don't know. It's just when Jean said, I was wondering where he'd been, and then I feel like Jean was like a representation of the audience. When he asked, he's like, well, how did he die? How did he go out? I'm like, that's us. That's us, the audience, going, how did Marco die? Why won't you tell us these things, show? The thing about this show, and I've been thinking about it the last week since I've watched episode 13, or last several days, is I was thinking, I liken this show a lot to Game of Thrones because there are very similar elements, and you can tell that the mangaka does draw some inspiration from the show, or vice versa. But the thing about Game of Thrones is that when you have a character that's been established, even if they die, you know they're going to die, but you at least see how they die, right? There are very few characters that you just show up and there's a body there and you're like, oh no, Jon Snow died. Oh no. It's like, you just don't see that. You get an actual death and it has meaning. But with this show, it's very true to life that you just see characters die and there they are and you're like, well, we didn't find out what happened to them. Like with Thomas, we didn't get to hear his backstory. Nope, he's dead. With Matabi, no, he just dies. That's it. There's no, at least with Ian's character, he gets eaten, and watching the recap episode, they show him get decapitated, and you see his head falling from the Titan's mouth, and you're like, what the heck, show? It's gruesome. So yeah, I'm really sad if Marco's dead, and that was actually him. Y'all crushed me because you've got me to ship Marco and Jean, and he's already dead. I'm like, really? So I'm holding out hope, like a small hope in my heart that maybe Marco's just missing and is injured somewhere being taken care of, and this guy was just a lookalike, like a doppelganger of Marco's, and Jean is just resigned to the fact that that was him. I don't want to admit that he's dead. But yeah, so I am excited that we have Levi now in the story. Levi, who, I didn't realize this until I was reading the comments for episode 9, but y'all are like, oh yeah, Levi's 30. Levi's 30? He's like my age. I'm like, okay, I feel comfortable that I can simp for Levi and it's totally cool. But I couldn't believe that. I was like, he looks so youthful. And a lot of people in the comments were comparing him to Nanami from Jujutsu Kaisen. And I was like, well, Nanami and him are kind of opposites. Nanami looks like he's really old, but he's like in his mid-20s. And Levi looks like in his early... I thought Levi was like 20, like 19 or 20. And then they're like, nah, he's 30. And I'm like, okay, so he has a really youthful appearance even though he's older. Cool. Which it kind of makes sense now that he's 30 because, one, he has a big reputation in the town. And they're like, oh, Levi's the strongest in the army. And if he'd only been like 16 years old... he wouldn't have been there in the Survey Corps long enough to have that reputation, right? And also, he's really, really talented and really good. And I know Mikasa's really good, but he just has this air of maturity about him, except when he's calling Eren a brat and saying it. Which Eren and him have 15 years of difference in age, which I find very interesting. They're like, Eren's like half his age, which is very interesting. And then we have Erwin, who's the commander, and I'm really excited to get into his character, into Levi. So, on the one hand, I'm really excited we got a new Corps, a new ED. I'm really excited for all that. I'm ready to get into the Survey Corps and get all that. But on the other hand, if Marco and Connie have died, I'm like going to be really sad. So, there's that. But yeah, this episode's called Can't Look Into His Eyes Yet. Which I'm wondering what that is referring to. Eve of the Counterattack Part 1. So we're playing a counterattack against Titans. We've had our first victory against them, and we're going to go from there and see what happens. So I'm pretty excited, but I'm kind of trepidatious because I know how this show is. I know how it is. It's going to get crazy. I can't believe we're only halfway through season 1, and so much has happened. Like, it's been a while since probably Game of Thrones that I've watched a show where so much has happened in an episode. Where we're only halfway through one season and all of this stuff has happened. Which is kind of funny. Game of Thrones was like 10 episodes, 10 to 12 episodes per season, like a core length, and it lasted 8 seasons, and this show is 4 seasons, and so it's kind of like the same length. Just a coincidence. But yeah, y'all, I've rambled for nearly 10 minutes. I'm just ready to start this next series of episodes. So yeah, I've got a little box down here to help me find out where I am in the episode. But let's do this, y'all. Let us start episode 14 of Attack on Titan season 1, and we are going to start that here in 5, 4, 3. Let me get everything lined up. 2, 1, and let's go. Oh, y'all. this start to the second core was amazing. I am all about like the mystery, the intrigue, but when you get a good setup and payoff, and it was set up this whole Erwin and Levi are already selling me as characters. Erwin Smith may have my heart already, and Levi does too. Damn, Levi! Oh my god. So this episode was amazing for a lot of different reasons. One, because of just the twist of how are Erwin and you had to know by the end of this episode that Erwin and Levi both knew what the military police wanted to do. They both knew going into this that the military police were going to want to get Eren to kill him. Like, they had to have known. And so I love that conversation between Pixis and Erwin, and Pixis kind of figuring out how Erwin is. He's like, oh, you're really straight-laced, but not really. Not really, perhaps. No, Erwin's a little bit more of a strategist than Erwin reminds me a lot of Armin, kind of, in a way, because of how the strategy works. And Levi reminded me a lot of Eren in this episode because of just, like, his brashness. But, oh my gosh, there's so much to talk about. Mikasa hates Levi. Oh my god, that face at the end there. Oh, but what I love about this episode is Erwin and Levi both had a plan going into this, being like, okay, we've got to convince this one man to let us have Eren. And here's the thing, you have the one side with the military police and the cult leaders and the Walsina people, all that are driven by fear and this idea of we just need to kill Eren and get it over with and just get him out of the picture. Whereas Erwin and Levi are like, no, we have a chance to take back Wall Maria and save people and save humanity if we just use Eren's ability in the right way. And so the reality becomes, how do we convince this judge, Zachary, to let us have Eren in our custody over theirs? Because that's really what it comes down to. It's like, who's going to be able to handle Eren the best? Us or the military or the police? The military police just want to dissect him and then kill him. We want to use his ability and save humanity. And so it's genius on their part because their argument is, it's perfect. They're like, look, y'all want to dissect him and kill him? Yeah, how are you going to stop him from turning in? Because their argument was, he'll turn into a Titan and kill us. And they're like, okay, well, what are you all going to do about it? Because Eren had just said, he's like, y'all have never even seen a Titan before, and you're going to handle one? And Levi, just beating the shit out of him, was like, I can keep this kid in check. If he turns into a Titan, I'm going to kill him. What are you going to do if he turns into a Titan? And they're like, and that's what sells Zachary, I think, is the idea that Levi is going to, and when Levi told Eren, he's like, the higher ups, the top brass won't care because they know I'm the only one that can handle this. And he proves it there. And man, it looked like Eren was kind of on to what they were planning, because then when they were in the jail cell, we don't fully get to see everything that happens in their meeting. So it sounds like they had a plan, and they're like, look, if worse comes to worse, Levi's going to beat the shit out of you, and that's what's going to, and you just roll with it. Roll with whatever we do, because we know what we're talking about, and we're going to save your life. Like, him beating the crap out of him saved his life. Otherwise, he would have died. They would have gave him to the military police, and they would have killed him. So, this episode, there's so much happening. So much stuff we've learned about. There's so much lore. There's so much backstory. I pulled Crunchyroll up so that when we get to the midway point, we can see the OP. There's so much happening in the OP. I feel like I'm going to be breaking it apart the next 14 episodes. Just being like, or the next 12 episodes or whatever. But, oh my gosh, so much. Like, Levi establishing why he is as revered as he is. And there's so much implications about religion. The ED where it shows Eren like as the Jesus figure, it's like, oh yeah, we're going there, show. We went there with the whole gossip in the town. But I want to go back and go over, because we got an image. We've not gotten into Walsina until this episode, and so with the whole higher ups thing, I was wondering if we would get into Walsina, and we have, and it's just as bad as I thought. So I'm like, we need to go through this. But so Marco is dead. I'm crushed. He's not in the OP at all. It's like he's dead. Connie's there though, so I'm like, at least Connie looks like he lived. But yeah, and then we have Wall. I find it interesting that's either Wall, it's either Cena or Rose that are, I think it's Cena that's on the image of the wall here, which is interesting. And the flares and everything. I'm not going to get too crazy into the OP right now, because I feel like we're going to touch base on it every episode. But there's a female Titan in this OP. So I'm like, Pixis, you better not be killing off Pixis, because that was his whole thing. He's like, I just want to die at the hands of a woman Titan. like, and there's someone with short hair. Is that Mikasa? I don't think so. But it looked like Armin had blood over him, like Carrie style, like looking like Carrie. Like, what the hell? Like, this OP has me really hyped up for the rest of this season. I'm not gonna lie. And it looks like it's happening beyond the wall. They're gonna take back Maria. Well, by beyond the wall, I mean taking back Maria. But yeah, okay. So we have the images, the statues of the woman holding the scales for balance, which I find interesting because it's all in the hands of one person that gets to decide the fate here. My thing with the whole chains is, and I talked about this in the reaction, is that if they're trying to keep Eren from turning into a Titan, they clearly don't know the mechanics of it. Because those chains, they know the mechanics by the point where they tie his hands back around him when he's on trial. But during the actual imprisonment, he could totally have bit his hands and become a Titan. He could have totally gotten out of there if he wanted to. So that's interesting. But we get inside the interior of Walsina, and these hoity-toity people we got like money bags here with his bowler, with his top hat and everything. And they're all reading about what happened at Walrose and happened at Trost. And it's so fascinating because you kind of get a scale of how big this place is. How many miles are between Walrose and Walsina. Like, there's so much distance there. And these people are only worried about, they're like, we'll have a food shortage and all these refugees will come in and then they'll take over our town. Like, basically saying exactly what happened with Walrose when the Wal Maria refugees came in. So they don't care about the fact that these people nearly died or whatever. They're just like, we don't want ourselves to be, they're not going to show up there with this Titan friend of theirs. So, yeah, insanity. Okay, so Walrose is the one on the OP now instead of Wal Maria. Okay, good to know. And then it's like all the gossip has different sides of the story. So the one people are worried about the refugees coming in, and then this guy's like starting this like a cult, like it's like a god, our savior has come to take back Wal Maria. And it's like, oh my god, like making Eren into like a Jesus figure. Eren's a little too violent for Jesus. So it's like, ah! And then we get to talk about all of these, like the cult leader, like the guys that Eren noted was the priest that was the cult leader. And he's like, wow, why does he have so much power now? And it's like, yeah, these cults have kind of gained some power in the last couple of years because of everybody's fear feeding into it. It's like real life. When you have cults and people, the fear of it feeds into it and people join those cults because they're afraid. And so it's very interesting. But yeah, so we have the military police. And again, the military police normally are your top cadets. They're the top cadets of each trainee group that are given the option to be military police. So this Niall guy is obviously a very competent person, unless he's been, lounging on the job the last however many years. But they say commoners always have been a rash lot. So I'm like, are you all not commoners? Are you all from Walsina or Walrose? I don't understand. And they're like worried about a revolt, like a riot amongst everybody. And then Niall's the one that suggests that they dispose of Eren first, which is like, okay. I also like that Zachary, our judge, his coat has the red, yellow, and green symbols on it, kind of like the flares, the red, green, and yellow flares. And his coach, his carriage and everything are color-coded as well. It's like, man, y'all color coordinate. I'm all about it. I'm a color coordinating person. But that's taking it to an extreme when your seats of your carriage match your coats. But that is interesting. And if you notice, like, the colors of the military, it's like green, red, and yellow are the colors of the country as well. So that's interesting. But yeah, we have Zachary introduced here, the premier. Very, very, and his bolo is huge, so you know he's important. And he's like, it's certainly hot. Interesting. And so I like this conversation between Erwin and Pixis, and how Pixis sizes him up. He's like, I'm the commanding officer of the scout regiment. So they'd never met before, Erwin Smith and Dot Pixis. And so he's like, shouldn't we not be meeting? Because isn't this weird? And Pixis is like, we're not meeting. I just happened to run into you. We're just having this conversation during my morning walk. It's like Pixis likes his morning walks, It's like Alucard from Hellsing Ultimate. He just goes on walks. It's great. But we'll just chat while we're here. And I like that Pixis defends Eren. He's like, I don't want him killed because I do think he can be of help. Like, he's seen him in action. He's seen what he can do. And the thing is, the military police, since they've been at Walsina, are not privy to what all has been happening at Walrose and Walsina. And so, yeah, they say Dallas Zachary is the premier. So Pixis is like, Erwin, you and I both know what these Titans are capable of, and we need someone like Eren on our side to help take back Wall Maria and help take back humanity from the Titans. And so he's like, you know how important this is. And Erwin kind of establishes, he's like, Zachary is our judge and jury. Like, at the end of the day, he's the one that's going to decide his fate. And if he can't determine that Eren is going to be a benefit to humanity, he's just going to kill him and get rid of him. You and I both know that. And I like that. I like that Erwin kind of seems surprised that Pixis doesn't want to kill him, and Pixis saying, you know, I'm kind of at my wit's end because my own people are worried about Eren's ability as well. The most I can do is avoid agreeing with the military police. And I love that we see the details on his flask up close, and there's a rose and the little tendrils coming out of the rose. But I'm like, it's kind of the symbol of the garrisons, but also Walrose as well. Like, this is his home. And I really like that little detail and that touch. And I like that he asks Erwin. It's almost like when he asked Eren, you know, can you lift the boulder? And Eren's like, well, I'll try. And he's like, I phrased that wrong. Will you lift the boulder? Like, he was phrasing his questions very specifically to see Eren's reaction. And he kind of does that with Erwin here. He says, are the odds in your favor? And Erwin's like, no, they're not. But we have a proposal already geared up. And that gets Pixis' attention. And then he says, now whether or not it'll work depends on how the debate unfolds. And he's like, oh, so you're playing it entirely by ear? And I love Erwin's line here. He's like, our line of work takes us outside the walls. We always play things by ear. So it's like you can't predict what's going to happen with the Titans, so you just have to roll with it. You have to improvise and make things go in your favor. And that's exactly their method of how the debate's going to go. He's like, we've got this plan. Eren, we're going to use Levi to show how he can rein Eren in, but whether or not we can use it depends on how the debate goes down. He's like, so it really kind of depends on what's going to happen in the moment. So we gotta just play it close to the vest. And Pixis seems to love that answer, and I love that he's like, you're not so uptight after all, which it's great. It's like Pixis and Erwin kind of aren't exactly what they appear to be, which I really, really like. And so then we cut to Mikasa and Armin, and I was kind of thinking this episode that Armin would step in and say something, but then again, what could Armin say? What could he say that he's not someone that's credible? The only reason they even questioned Mikasa is because they were trying to use her as a means to get Eren outed as a threat. And Mikasa, girl, the only thing my brother would say is like, he's like, Mikasa's pretty yandere, and I'm like, yandere? Mikasa? But I see it, like, girl would throw down and kill somebody for him. Like, she is ready to draw blood at all times. And I'm like, girl, Mikasa, when she lets her emotions get in control, can kind of be almost as much of a detriment as she is a help. And it's like, I get that she nearly lost Eren, and so she's always freaked out now, but I'm like, she has doubled down on wanting to keep him safe. And it's like, girl, you're not going to be in charge of him anymore. That's going to be Levi's job. And that look she gave him after he beat the snot out of Eren, oh, she was like going to straight up murder him. And Armin's like, please don't do it. No. So, yeah, this whole court scene, it reminded me so much of thinking of Game of Thrones. There's a scene in season 4 of Game of Thrones where Tyrion, one of our main characters, is put on trial for a crime he didn't commit, and he just lets loose in the courtroom. He's like, I'm going to let y'all have a piece of my mind. And that's exactly what happened with Eren. Eren's like, you know what, I'm going to think what I'm saying because I want to now. And so it happened, and that's exactly what Erwin and Levi were waiting for. They wanted him to speak up because that's been Eren's biggest detriment, is that he's either impatient or he can be reckless, and he doesn't think before he speaks or thinks before he acts. And so that's been his biggest detriment. And in this case, it actually saved his life because it gave Levi a opening to come in and just beat the crud out of him. Okay, Hanji, I freaking love Hanji. Y'all have established that Hanji is I'm watching the episode now, is non-binary and doesn't really have a gender. The mangaka didn't give Hanji a gender, but the voice is a voice actress playing Hanji, and in the show it refers to Hanji as a she. But if the author hasn't given Hanji a gender, I'm going to just say they or them or Hanji, as long as I can remember. But I freaking love Hanji. Hanji is so much fun. Like I said in the earlier reactions, it reminds me a lot of Sasha, only much more controlled, which is interesting to me, and much more confident. And then we have Michi Zacharias, a section commander, and just sniffing Eren. So I'm wondering if he has an ability that's kind of like, has to do with smell. I'm wondering if that's his thing, if he has a really good sense of smell. And he says he has a habit of laughing through his nose. Very interesting character. Very interesting. But I like that Hanji has been just distracting him this whole time, walking, so he doesn't question anything or start to freak out. They're like, oh, hey, here we are. Okay, bye. Good luck. And it just pushes him in. But yeah, I wanted to pause on this image. Oh my gosh, this painting. So much symbolism in this damn painting. I freaking love it. I wanted to like zoom in and see what all we see about it, because in the episode I couldn't pause it. But yeah, that's what he's looking up at. That's what Eren is looking up at, is this picture of people in war just stabbing each other and killing each other. And you're putting that in a courtroom that's supposed to be the Hall of Justice, and that's the portrait above that the people are seeing when they look up. Awesome. And then you look on the back wall and you see that there are four different emblems. You have the Survey Corps, which is the two wings. You have the roses, which are the two roses. Interestingly enough, the wings are two wings. The garrisons are two roses. The training corps are two swords, like two blades, like the trainees. But with the military police, there's just one unicorn. I think that's interesting that all the other things have two, but the military police only has one. I wonder if there's some symbolism with that. It's this show, so there probably is, but I just wanted to keep that in the back of my head. I just noticed that and was like, oh, that's interesting. But yeah, you were in the basement of the courthouse this whole time. And the contraption that they have that locks his arms in place is interesting. It like wraps the chain up in there. That's really cool. That's very, very interesting. And so they have him on trial, and he's noticing all the occult members, the priests, everything. And then Zachary is without his garbs and everything. He doesn't have a gavel, nothing, just his hands and the decree in front of him of who should take charge of him. And then we have now... And they don't beat around the bush. The military police is like, no, we're going to dissect him and kill him. And it's like, oh, glad y'all are honest. Glad y'all didn't beat around the bush with that. Good on ya. But yeah, I feel bad for Eren because he didn't realize that he attacked Mikasa. And in that moment, I've been waiting for Eren to have an emotional response to something. And this episode, finally, when it all catches up, when he finally has a chance to breathe, he's like, wait, where is everybody else? Where is everybody else? I haven't been able to keep in contact with them. And he's like, I almost killed Mikasa. Like, he just realizes all of this. And it's like the first time we actually see Eren have some like reflection and remorse towards his teammates in the longest time. Like, for the longest time, he's been he's either been a Titan and acting on instinct, or he's been questioning everything or wondering what the hell's going on. And so this is the first time he actually has time to reflect in the moment. And he's like, oh crap, what has been happening while I've been gone? And then, so the military police make their big dramatic decree, and then Erwin Smith, the 13th commander of the Scout Regiment. So we don't know exactly how long the Scouts have been. I mean, 13, to only have had 12 previous leaders in 100 years seems too soon. It seems too short of a time, because that would be, like, even if you had, like, 10 years, I guess, even if you had 10 years per commander, I guess that'd be 120 years. So yeah, that could be. It could be that they've been only 7, but even then, that's like 7 to 8 years a person. It's not a lot of time. So they've gone through them rather quickly, and if he's the 13th. But we don't know how long Erwin's been in charge. But I really like Erwin already. Like, him and Levi make a very good team. And they're just short and sweet. They're like, we want to use him, take back old Maria, that's it. And I like that they frame it so quickly. And Erwin has such a good poker face because he's like, in that moment, he's like, that is all. But the look in his eyes, the look in Erwin's eyes, like, speaks volumes. He's like, you just feel like there's so much under the surface of what he's thinking, like, whether it's nerves, whether it's anxiety, like, it's all just behind this stoic face, but his eyes are so expressive. They're like Eren's. They're really, really expressive eyes, those blue eyes. And so I'm like, interesting. But I just love his character already. It's so cool. And so, what they're wanting to do is use Eren to go from the east, from Kalaneth, and approach Shiga and Sheena from the east and establish a new route from scratch. And then people start freaking out because they're like, more gates? That'll just be more for the Titans to break through. Which I'm like, honestly, yeah, you got your gates, but the Colossal Titan or the Armor Titan, couldn't they just bust through the wall anyway? We've seen the Armor Titan bust through the wall to begin with, so I don't know. And then they question Pixis on what he thinks and whether he's going to be valuable. And so that's all interesting too. And then, of course, they ask, Eren, can you use your ability? And he says, yes, I can. And then they bring up the whole thing with Trost and the whole thing with Mikasa. And I was waiting for them to bring that up and I like that Rico's like, I ain't lying in my reports. I'm not doing that. No. So I was waiting for them to bring that up. What I didn't expect was for them to bring up the whole thing about them killing the 3 guys from before. Like, and the Nile guy does bring up a good point. He does bring up a point. He's like, your defense of him is totally emotional. You're just basing it on your relationship with him. And yeah, that is true. But she's not wrong. He did save her. But, I mean, Nile brings up a really good counter argument. And then talks about that they were taken in. And he's like, oh yeah, our own investigation into this matter has led us to a most surprising discovery. And I also want to note that a lot of these guys look totally dead to the world. Like a lot of these soldiers. Eren Yeager and Mikasa Ackerman, at the age of 9, stabbed and killed 3 adult robber kidnappers. So it all came back around. I was like, because I've been commenting in previous reactions of how Eren's kind of a psychopath in a way, because he did commit premeditated murder on 2 of them, and then Mikasa killed the 3rd one. Now, granted, it was in self-defense, but this guy's arguing even if it was in self-defense, we cannot help but question his basic humanity. Should we really place personnel and funds and the fate of humanity into his hands? And that's getting the crowd stirred up. So they're basically like, this guy morally was able to kill people quite easily at the age of 9. So are we really going to trust that he's going to do the right thing while in Titan form? Or is his primal desires, his base instincts, gonna make him want to kill people? Because he says he wants to kill Titans now, so what's going to stop him from wanting to kill people too? So it's like, you get what he's saying, and it's all come back around, but obviously Eren's like, no, I'm trying to... Erwin and Levi are like, no, that's not really what he's trying to do. But you kind of see Niall's argument, but I also don't think it's right that they want to just instantly kill him. I'm like, yeah, you guys should be wary of Eren. Absolutely. Especially because he couldn't remember when he attacked Mikasa. So yeah, that is something to be scared of and be fearful of, but he could be helpful too. And that's when Levi comes in. And they said he's clearly a Titan that snuck in taking the form of a child. It's like, oh my gosh. And then they question Mikasa. They're like, she isn't human either. So we talked about this in a previous reaction. I'm like, it's interesting that the same kind of like neuro stuff that was going on with Eren was going on with Mikasa as well. So I'm like, they question whether she could become a Titan or not. And they're like, we should dissect her just to be safe. And it's like, oh my God. Like, things start to escalate and get out of hand. And then Eren's like, no, she's like, she has nothing to do with this. And he defends her. And Mikasa's like, oh my God. And Eren's like, no. And for a second, it looks like steam and stuff is like coming out of him. And I was like, oh my, I thought he was going to turn into a Titan. I was like, he's going to turn into a Titan in this courtroom. It's going to be chaos, but he doesn't. But yeah, you're using speculation to push your own selfish agendas, and then he just goes off on him, and I love it. And he says you should invest And the thing is, there is steam there. There is steam. It's like, you should invest everything in me. And if you look in the crowd, I paused it. If you look in the crowd, Levi is gone. It's like, he's like just making his way around, like gonna beat the shit out of this kid. But that steam that came off from him for a second, I was like, is he about to turn into a Titan? Because I think he was. And then everybody's like, and Niall's like, just shoot him now. And then, nope. Before he gets a chance to do that, Levi just kicks his teeth right out. And he spares no expense. Levi just like, that was brutal. And Mika says like, are you kidding me? And Armin's like, don't you dare. Like, he is saving his life right now. Just, even though he's beating the crap out of him. And I love it. I love it. Levi's like, so, who else is going to be doing this? Pain is the best tool for teaching discipline. What you need now is to be taught a lesson, not given a talking to. So, Levi, man, putting on the persona of just the badass, I'm going to kick the shit out of you. And Erwin's just sitting there, and all of them are just sitting there like, this is just how we do things at the Survey Corps. And to the point where Niall is like, hey Levi, don't kill him. What if he gets mad and turns into a Titan? And Levi's like, I'll take care of him and kill him if that happens. But don't be silly. Oh my God. This episode was so good. It's so good. And I love that it gets us into the mindset of Levi and Erwin and how the Survey Corps works. And that they are not afraid to pull punches and to do whatever they have to win. And I really like that. It's the difference between the Survey Corps and the military police, right? The military police, they're surrounded by all of these like zealots and all these higher ups and snooty people, and they're just obsessed with status and everything. And the Survey Corps is like, we got a job to do, so we're gonna go do it. And this is what we gotta do. And I like that Erwin just jumps in so calmly and coolly. And Erwin's like, we don't know what he's capable of, but if we put Levi in charge of him, we might be able to get this mission done. And then, of course, Zachary's like, well, Levi, can you handle it? And he's like, this was the plan all along. I love it. But yeah, and then Hanji saying like, sorry that we had to do that, but thanks for playing along with us. And I like that Eren is in on it enough that he understands. And Levi's like, oh, I most definitely can kill him. And then Mikas's face. I feel like this episode, again, like episode 13, there's so much in this episode that I feel like it's all going to come back later on. And this is going to be one of those episodes too that I'm going to want to rewatch later. But yeah. And then Hanji. Yeah. How does it exactly hurt? Interesting. Like Hanji always wants to question how things are working, like the inner workings of things. And Erwin's like, sorry we had to do that, but that's how we got what we wanted. That was our trump card. And I like that Erwin is like, you have my admiration. And he holds his hand out, and I like to shake his hand. I look forward to working with you. And they shake hands, and then Levi just walking up with that big dick energy, throwing his leg over it and being like, so you resent me? It's like, no. I love it. I absolutely love it. It's so, so good. And then Hanji saying like, oh, your tooth could be used as a specimen. Which, here's the interesting thing. Yeah, his tooth doesn't disintegrate or anything, so they could use it as a sample. And then, lo and behold, his tooth's already grown back. So there's that. And then the ED too. I may have to watch the ED towards the end a couple times just to get all the symbolism and imagery from it. But, oh my God. This episode. Man. This was really, really good. This is the kind of stuff that I like with shows, is when you get into like the politics and the inner workings of the society and how the justice system works in this world, and just the inner workings of these characters, like getting into the inner web of Pixis and Erwin and Levi, and Eren's now thrown in the mix. The only thing that's questionable is obviously Eren being in the Survey Corps. I have a feeling the story is going to separate at this point, and we're going to have Mikasa and Armin with Reiner and Jean and the others, and seeing what's happening with their group. And then we're going to have Eren off with Levi and Erwin in the Survey Corps. Like, that's where I think it's going to happen, is they're just going to diverge, because they're not going to let Mikasa go with Eren. No, she, like, could barely keep herself in check in the courtroom. They're not going to let her near him right now, because she's, like, an emotional compromise. And Armin's going to probably try to keep her in check, too. So I'm curious. I feel like the rest of the season is going to diverge into those two pathways, and then from there it's going to go wherever. But I'm so curious, guys, to know where we're going with this show. Like, this is an awesome start to the second half. It's so good. It's so good. But oh man, I'm gushing. I'm so sad that Marco's dead. Marco's apparently dead. Cheers. I'm so sad Marco's dead. That's a real big bummer. But I just need a moment of reflection with Jean and Annie and the others. I feel like Jean and Annie could bond, because Annie seemed really distraught about losing that person that we don't know who it was yet, but seemed really distraught about losing that person. And Jean kind of seems the same way. So I feel like Jean and Annie could have a really good conversation between the two of them. But, oh man, y'all. This series, it's getting so good. So good! But I've rambled enough. I'm so excited, y'all. I can't wait to hear what you guys think of this episode. I know y'all can't spoil me, well, you could, but you guys have been amazing in not spoiling me, so thank you. But if there's anything you can talk about in the episode, I'm very curious to know what it is. So, with that being said, I hope y'all have enjoyed this reaction. I'm giddy. I can't wait for episode 15. It's going to be great. I'm sure nothing bad is going to happen. Knock on wood. But in any case, I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I will be back next time with episode 15 of Attack on Titan. Bye.